Hey guys, Rob the solitary Inwit still here with you. I thought I would recap last night's episode 22, I think it was, in our grand final week. I think tomorrow's the last episode, so I thought I'm in lockdown, I've got nothing to do. I'm just going to give it a crack and do an episode each night. Hopefully, when Survivor America or Survivor 41 starts, Jack and I will be back doing this, but there's no point in him coming in for this season. We're almost wrapped up. Anyway, I thought I'd open up discussing a couple of different things. First, thanks for people who watched last week's episode, and Faith and Bubba for jumping in with some discussion on the chat. I enjoy it, and I'll go into a bit of that in a second. But I do want to mention one little thing that bothers me, and it's been, for those of you who have watched a lot of these episodes, which there's probably not many people who do, Jack and I've had this theory that I've brought up to Jack for a while, and it kind of bothers me that season 1 Kirsty Bennett won, and Sportsbet had her odds very, very low in the early, like, I don't know, by episode 5, and she was like odds out favorite to win, and she in the regular season, she's someone you want to take to the end because you could probably beat her. Pia Miranda, she had a massive odds on favorite to win. And currently Hayley has a huge odds on favorite, and she's had a huge odds on favorite for a long time too. And like, I checked it last night just to see what it's sitting at now with the final 5, and she's at $1.20 to win, and everybody else is $10 plus. This bothers me for as much as I want Hayley to win. I know I talk about her strategy, and I was a little upset with her gameplay, which was the discussion on YouTube, which I will also go into. And obviously, I believe I'm still correct with my analysis as of the events of last night. She's always been odds on favorite to win. And the show's been filmed and edited, and there is a winner. They know the winner. And it really bothers me if, I know I'm not one for these conspiracy theories, but this seems to be a bit of a nuisance. And I've only looked 4 times out of all the seasons. I don't know if Dave, who I was just captivated by Dave's play in last season, if he was odds on favorite to win from a very long time. The only season that wasn't correct was Jericho winning. He was sitting in 3rd position as far as favorites to win. I don't remember who was odds on favorite, but from memory, the final episode to decide who won from that was shot to tape live the day before it aired. So maybe there was no winner announced. However, in this world where we can't do a live reveal of the winner, Sportsbet somehow have a ridiculous odd on Hayley. Again, great, because I really want Hayley to win. I think she's amazing, but it just really takes a little bit of the joy out of it to me that I can potentially find out the winner, because they are going to they're going to have some sort of insider information and make sure they don't lose money. Big conspiracy theory that I've had for a number of years now, but it's all kind of playing out. Anyway, I just wanted to touch on the conversations of my opinion of why I think voting out Danny was the incorrect move. Now, and for a little while in that conversation, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to apologize to Bubba, or apologize that I was wrong, completely wrong. And it's not that there's no right or wrong. Really, there isn't. You're playing a game that is very fluid, and there's a lot of moving pieces, and a lot of things can happen. But with this situation, I find, in this case, the Danny vote out for Hayley was, and the one thing I hear when the episode started up last night, Hayley said, I voted out Danny because she is a huge physical, no, she said the physical threat, and I don't buy that. Not that she's not a physical threat, but the thing that I would pay respect to why I would have voted out Danny is that Danny has a lot more friends on the jury. That's something I personally didn't consider, because I really would want gameplay to trump, oh, I just want to give my friends some money. I feel like a better gameplay would work. And I feel like what she should have done is 100% voted out George, because George, as he proved last night, is much more dangerous than Dani could ever have been. Dani has won, yes, she's won a lot of rewards, but she's only won one immunity, and some of those rewards are team-based challenges. Yes, she's won some individual rewards, but I'm sure there's some team-based ones that you played together, and I find there's always a slight difference between a reward challenge and an immunity challenge. The immunity challenges just kick it up a little bit further. And so yes, and then we have the same issue with Hayley going in. Flick is a more competitive challenger than I am, and I want to get rid of Flick. George saying, I reckon I need to be playing opposite Hayley, which is probably correct because George has upset a lot of people. Might make Hayley want to keep George around longer than, or have to keep George around because he's burnt some bridges, even though he's played a stronger game. My biggest problem with Hayley's game is that at the start, it was really good. She made one error, and that one error was, in the early days, is, to me, I think I mentioned it briefly when I first started doing this again, not voting out Simon, voting out Simon and throwing 3 votes on Dani. If you're going to make a blindside, if you're going to try and make a move, that would have been a great strategical move. Take Dani out. It exposed her. It then put her on the back foot. It then knew someone needed to gun for her and get her out. It then caused her being eliminated, and luckily for her, a twist kept her in the game, which is great. It's all part of the game. I'm all for these one-off twists, and I'm glad they're not. I feel like this season we've got a nice balance of spacing out from where the twists have been and haven't really damaged gameplay. But we see now George is by far a more dangerous player, because this whole concept that someone's better at a physical challenge than me, unless you aren't physical, you still have a chance to win. So George probably would like to get rid of some of these physical competitors because he can't win a physical challenge. Hayley's currently the most dominant physical player out there, even above Flick. If Emmett was still there, maybe I would agree that she needs to get rid of Emmett. But immunities only get you so far. Immunities get you to the next stage. Immunities are a safety, and we heard Dani say, I think when Dani won, now I have the power. Immunities aren't a guaranteed way for you to have the power moving forward. Much in the same as we see last night, a hidden idol, your hidden immunity idol, isn't the most powerful piece, because you can outplay a hidden immunity idol, which is why we have the simple, standard, straightforward outplay of we got to split the votes. If the idol's played, we have a draw, we stack it on the person who played the idol, or the person we want to go home. This is highlighted very, very heavily when George sits and watches, or just watches Flick sit for, I don't know, an hour or two, not scrambling, to go, maybe she could have an idol, and how do I outplay that? I talk to Cara, and I say, this plan needs to happen without anybody else knowing. We don't need Hayley to know. We definitely don't need Wei to know, because Hayley and Wei are tight. As I said last time, you had Flick and Dani as a 2, you have Hayley and Wei as a 2, and you have George and Cara as a 2. It was, I still believe Hayley will win, but her game has been really passive, and she's just lost all the power. She was in a position of power. She had the ability to take a number of 2, swing it to a number of 4, take out a big threat, a very dangerous threat in George. That becomes her move. She can then swing across to Cara, and sure, there's a hidden idol in play, but people spend the game so afraid of these idols. George has just proved it doesn't matter if you have an idol. You have your plan A, you have your plan B, and sometimes you have a plan C. And this is what's happened in this case, where, not that Hayley knew she had an idol, but Hayley said at Tribal, you could have an idol. And what did Hayley do? Hayley did nothing to counteract the potential that Flick would have an idol. And that potential was to take Flick on board, at the very least, grab Flick as a number and split up that 2, because now you've lost your wing person. She doesn't have Wei. She now has to rely on Flick, who has burnt her time and time again, or go to a George, or as we see in the promos, Cara might try and step away from George, which she needs to do to win. If she has a hope of winning, she can't be there with George. And she has to take George out. That can be her move, because right now she doesn't have a move. I mean, last night we saw when George said we need to vote Way, and literally Cara was like, she doesn't have an idol. I don't believe she has an idol. You don't need to believe. You can believe they do or don't, but the risk is too great to just not believe, to just go, this is going to be how it is. You have to take every option as an ability that could play out. She might not, but what if she did? The chances of you go home are higher. So this whole, I just don't buy relying on they're a much more physical power than I am, because the game is more than just physicality. Yes, Australian Survivor, the challenges are far more physical and more in line with the brawny side than say your old school American Survivor. I don't know how season 41 is going to change that up. They keep saying it's going to be more brutal, so they might take a leaf out of Australia's book and make some really hard end sort of challenges. But your gameplay can't rely on winning immunities. If it does, you got a problem. It's great to win them, and it's great to not have a challenge to win them. And sure, Hayley doesn't have a challenge, and she can kind of breeze through with that passive gameplay, and she possibly will. You know, Flick doesn't seem to get as far as she needs to in the immunities to put up a challenge. So tomorrow night we might see Hayley win the immunity and then get to dictate the vote, because there's only 4 left. There's going to be a 2-2 split most likely. Send someone fire, or she can just send George home. They could all send George home pretty easily, and she can win another immunity and go on to the final 2, and she will most likely win that immunity too, because it's going to be the standard Australian endurance long marathon of, it's got to be hours and hours on end. She'll probably win that, and she'll get to the end, and she's the strongest at the end. My biggest problem is her gameplay has been passive ever since she came back in. She made a mistake, she got voted out, and she wanted to redeem herself, and she got so caught up in redemption that she's missed these great opportunities to go from just a good player to an amazingly strong player that will be regarded in like greatest players of all time moment. She could have been our equivalent of a Parvati. You know, the last 2 seasons of Australian Survivor, Dave, the Golden God, loved it. I thought that was a flawless game from Dave, coming back and playing again and going out to win, and then going to Winners at War, watching Tony play. Just these 2 games back to back were stunning strategical games across the board from start to finish. Hayley has started well, made some errors, but she was thinking correctly. In my opinion, she had the right thought. When she got voted back, she did have to take the pedal off a bit. She had to ease up. She had to make sure her threat was down. But then there comes a time where she has to change that. She has to make a move. Again, I say she has to. She's probably going to win regardless. But for me to sit there and go, that was an A+ performance, she needed to make some moves. She needed to swing and take control. She was in the position of power. She had the swing vote, and she's had the swing vote for a little bit. She hasn't used it. And what has happened? She's lost her greatest, not like she's probably going to win regardless, but she's lost the person she would have wanted to take to the end. She's lost that. She had no control there. And yes, she may have controlled last vote, but it looks like George controlled it. And then that looks like George controlled it, and then George definitely 100% controlled the next vote. It's irrelevant if, well, Hayley can allow George to look like it. It looked like George had it, but really Hayley controlled it. Doesn't matter, because the next vote, George completely outplays everybody. He pantsed everybody last night. And even when Hayley said you could have an idol, what was her plan B? What was it? Because it wasn't there. We didn't see it because it wasn't important enough for television. It wasn't important enough to make the edit because she was never changing. If she was trying to bring him on board and vote George, sure, then we've got an interesting, or vote Cara, or she was on board with trying to get rid of Wei. Great. She wasn't. Her passive game style has put her on the back foot. She will most likely get to the end. She should win, and I hope she does win. But if it was her versus George, at the end, if George gets to the end, which he shouldn't, he should have gone last night. He actually should have gone he should have gone last week. But if George was to get to the end versus Hayley, Hayley has no cred against George aside from winning individual immunities because he has outplayed her 100%. And if you can get to the end by being a threat or being someone people basically hated George on day dot. The internet was aflame with people who hated George, wanted him out, who despised him. He hasn't been liked for a long time. He hasn't been on the numbers. His head's always been on the block since the very get-go. He's been there. And he's able to get all the way to here without winning an immunity challenge. By outplaying, George wins. George should win. He's a much stronger player than Hayley. But he won't. He should go home. He should have been home 2 tribals ago. It was dangerous to leave him in as long as he's here. Way too dangerous for Hayley to have left him in. It's not going to matter for Hayley because she's most likely going to win. Just to reiterate, if Danny or Flick or someone was a much more competitive challenger, not that they're not competitive, it's just, if it was me, if I ever get on the show, I'm probably going to suck at all these challenges. I probably will. But in my mind, I think I should be able to beat anybody. Unless someone's like just absolutely smashing it, then like I can't. But Hayley should have the confidence to go, yeah, they could beat me. But chances are, 60-70% chance, I'm probably going to win. The odds are in her favor. So to pull back and not attack that and start to take out an actual danger, because Danny isn't a danger. Danny's strategy, one of my friends messaged me about it last night. Mark was like, great description of Danny. She's all bark, no bite. Danny talked a big game and she's a great player and I'd love to see her back. But her strategy was always mild. She didn't hit any of the marks. The Simon vote, yeah, great. But if Hayley was playing it how she should have been, Danny should have gone home on the Simon vote. A lot of people are too focused. I mean, even Flick, we got to get rid of George. No. I mean, yeah, you can, but you can also use George to try and get a bit of power, to try and do something. Now, we now have 4 left. Hayley, who I think will win. Cara, who can't win. George, who should win but probably will be going home next tribal. And Flick. What happens tonight? I would assume Hayley will probably win most of the immunities and just clean up and go all the way to the end. I would assume that. If she doesn't, George is still a much bigger threat, especially after that move. George will go home before Hayley. So she's in a relatively safe position, regardless of what she does. And that's fine. It's amazing that she's got there. Like I said, I just really believe she's just played a bit too passive and it's been out of her control. And it's better to be in control to be able to claim that at the end. Cara can't win. Cara's proved time and time again she can't win. Very, very lovely lady and great to have seen her save George and ended up getting voted out but was saved through a twist early on. Really loyal, but her game sense isn't there. So, and it was highlighted last night when she just didn't believe someone could have an idol and actually had to trust George, but didn't even understood it, but then was like, oh, I'd like to get Hayley involved. I want to play this honesty game. Honesty, you're honest to George. You've been loyal. You've been a solid player. You've been you're a hero. You're seen as a hero. You don't have to worry about that. The game does need a bit of betrayal every now and then. You can't play a completely hero game without getting a little bit of blood splattered somewhere and get to the end and be able to talk your way through the tribal council. I just don't think, even if she does get to the end, I just don't see her having a strong enough case to sell to get anywhere. Flick's interesting. Flick could win because she's so well liked and she's got the story. I mean, no one has ever had their parent die on the show and they kept playing. Understand why she totally did it, but her story's pretty strong, and the emotional heartstrings, plus her old school Brawn friends, they might really vote for her if she gets to the end. She's a strong contender too. I would, and even, you know, she found an idol and played an idol to save herself. But even though the votes were a 2-2 split there, or was it? No. Yeah, a 2-2 split, 2 on Flick, 2 on Way. She technically was never in danger because she had the idol. She didn't use that idol correctly. She saved herself. Sure, it would have been a tie and she would have gone home. So yes, she used it correctly in the sense that she's still in the game. But that idol was power for her. And that idol, what that idol could have done is she probably could have used that idol when Danny and her were still around to sway away and Hayley across really hard to vote out of Georgia or Cara. We've got this idol. I mean, Hayley played this game. It's a 50-50 chance you're going to go home. What do you want to be? Do you want to be on our side? Because I'm going to play it for myself. I'm going to play it for Flick. Or I'm going to play it for Danny. She doesn't play it. And then she plays it again to save herself in the final 5 when it should be the last time to have played. She's used it much stronger there. And I think I did mention it. You could talk about playing the idol at final 6 to final 5 because there's now power in this idol by telling people. Obviously, I'm a big advocate for never needing to tell anyone, but in this was a special moment, a special case where it could have brought you leverage by other people knowing about this idol, and could have put people on the back foot, made them need to think of another plan, and that just gets people not looking at you. They might want to flush the idol, and they can try and flush the idol, but I probably would have used it to bring Way and Hayley across when Danny was back in, and then used it at final 5 to keep them in again, to keep those numbers strong. But right now, her idol play, yeah, she used it and kept herself in the game. It's just a very basic idol play. There's nothing amazing. There's nothing strategic behind the idol play. It just saved her. So aside from being likable and having a great story, and being, you know, a good all-rounder, I think Flick was a great player, or a great view. As a viewer, I enjoyed having Flick play the game. She wasn't, you know, for someone who, you know, these big wave surfers, though, Ross loved Ross, but someone who probably has a really established career outside of Survivor, and probably didn't need to play Survivor. I don't know her situation. But some of the, like, you know, a Gavin Wanganeen didn't need to be there. He's actually really forgettable. Whereas I would happily have Flick play again very easily. She'll be better the second time around after the run. So she could win. I don't think her chances are high, but she's got the best next lot of chances. And then obviously George should have gone home. George should win the game if he could get to the end. If he gets to the end, blows my mind. He shouldn't get to the end. He should be voted out next. The fact that he can't put up a competition in keeping himself in the game is his biggest problem. Because he is such a strategic threat. He's such a powerhouse when it comes to the strategy and the gameplay. And he proved it again last night. He's not just thinking in the moment. He's thinking ahead. He's thinking what ifs. He's playing the game. This, like I said, this is chess. And I did say before, even though you want your king there, the queen's most powerful piece, however, she just has not been firing. The king has been doing the heavy lifting, and if he was to get to the end, he wins. He should win. Doesn't matter if you don't like the guy or he burnt you, he played well. Then you have Hayley, like I said, she'll probably be the winner. She'll probably win next immunity, get herself through. and then she'll probably just win the last 2 immunities, to be honest. She won't have much competition, and then she's got a bit of a resume. It's just it has been a passive game in the second half, and her errors, like George learnt from his mistakes and played stronger. Hayley's mistakes early on caused her to play a bit more fearful. She played a bit safer, and not that that's a problem. She can walk away with $500,000. That's really, really awesome, and I think she's a killer player. Can't stress that enough. She could have been an A+ player, and she'll go out as the winner. For me, just a little bit short of where she could have been. She didn't live up to her potential. Again, doesn't matter. She's the winner. Really doesn't matter. But I would say that she ends up winning. It's a bit hard to see her not. Cara can't. Flick could. George should, but won't make it. Anyway, looking forward to seeing what happens tonight. For those of you who do watch this, seriously, thanks for tuning in. Please comment down the bottom. I will reply. I'm a sucker for Survivor, and it might get heated. It's not. Don't take anything personally. I just love this game, and it's all opinions. We've each got our own thought. I've been watching this non-stop since Survivor Borneo when it first came out. Watching it live, never missed a season. I love this show. I love the strategy. I love everything behind it. So thanks for joining in and listening to me ramble about a show I really, really love. I'll be back again for the final recap, and then moving on. Hopefully come Survivor Season 41, Jack and I will be back doing what we love. But if not, I will definitely be doing this. So please keep on commenting, subscribe, just enjoy. Anyway, thanks guys.